It really happened. EA was really bought by a Saudi Arabian investment fund known for some pretty horrific stuff. So why am I so terrified about the future of The Sims after this acquisition? Am I just prejudging this sweet company too harshly? Maybe they're just smart investors with lots of money and I'm just being paranoid, right? Well, no, unfortunately, there's real documented proof of human rights violations from this investment fund. I am talking about real proof that they did a lot of messy stuff, a lot of scary stuff, and today I'm going to tell you what exactly I'm so worried about. On paper, it might sound exciting, a giant company funneling money into our favorite games, yay! I mean, just think of all the interesting things they could do in gaming with billions of dollars, right? Maybe that means more money for developments, bigger teams, faster updates, and maybe we won't get half-baked DLCs anymore. But that's when it gets tricky. To understand what this takeover means, we need to look at what already happened with this company in the past. There's actually one example of an acquisition that they made that's 100% purchase, and what happened to this company was actually good. Let's start with the one singular, clear, positive example. A football or soccer club called Newcastle United, located in England. This investment fund bought 100% of this club in 2021. Newcastle United is one of the oldest football teams in England. The fans were skeptical when they heard about this. The takeover was extremely controversial and the deal dragged for months. There were protests in the streets and people did not like the idea that a country like Saudi Arabia would have their claws inside their soccer team. And why do I say country instead of investment fund? Because it is the country's investment fund controlled by their prince. The money started flooding in because before that, Newcastle United was kind of taking a nap. They were underfunded, underperforming, and stuck at the bottom for a while. And according to The Guardian, the new ownership injected some serious cash into this team. They started buying high-profile players, strengthening the team, and investing in the infrastructure that was neglected for years. Training facilities got their attention, recruitment budget increased, and suddenly Newcastle wasn't at the bottom anymore. The performance of the team blew up, and the results showed it. Within just a couple seasons, the team started climbing on their way up. For the first time in years, they actually qualified for much bigger leagues, like the UEFA Champions League. Fans who got used to disappointment suddenly had hope again. And this wasn't just hype, it was actual measurable success. Their value market tripled in just 3 years. This was a big deal. The money wasn't just being spent. The club itself became far more valuable than before. That's not a slow rise, that's rocket fuel levels of rise. A struggling mid-tier club suddenly became one of the hottest football investments in Europe. So yes, when people are hopeful that this deal with EA is actually not so bad, Newcastle Club is one of the examples that we can look at. It's proof that this investment fund has the resources to pump someone full of money, ambition, and just make it rise to the top. For fans of The Sims, this sounds like a dream scenario. Just imagine The Sims with unlimited funds and resources, cutting-edge technology, polished expansions, and enough developers to make sure the bugs are fixed before the actual release. Imagine EA not being limited and being funded by the world's deepest pockets. Sounds good, right? But here's the thing, money is only part of the equation. Newcastle is just an example showing the shiny surface. But the question is, at what cost? And what can we find if we look deeper into this investment fund? Because there is a much darker side to the story. Last year, the Human Rights Watch released a 95-page report about this investment fund. Basically, an entire book worth of documentation connecting this company to human rights abuse and murder. And when you hear what's inside, you'll understand why people are terrified of this deal. Let's start with the most famous example, the murder of a Saudi journalist, Jamal Khashoggi, that happened in 2018. He wasn't just any writer, he was a journalist for the Washington Post, a very well-known journal. And he was one of the few Saudi voices that was criticizing the Saudi government, especially their crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman. This journalist spoke about repression, censorship, and the lack of freedom of speech, and he literally died for it. He already fled the country and was living in the US because he was not safe there. He was not safe in his own home, but Even after he ran away, he wasn't safe. In 2018, he was in Istanbul and he was collecting some documents in preparation for his marriage. What happened inside was brutal. He was killed by a team of Saudi agents. And the murder shocked the world, and it was on the cover of newspapers for weeks. And human rights group demanded accountability. Now here's where the Saudi investment fund comes in. The two airplanes that belonged to the team that killed him were from this investment fund. Specifically, they were from Sky Prime Aviation, a company that the investment fund owned. Think about it for a second. The same fund that just bought EA once owned the very planes responsible for the murder of a journalist who was talking about free speech. All because he dared to disagree and have an opinion? That's terrifying. But it's not the only thing they've done. Let's talk about the futuristic city project. You might have heard of this insane project called NEOM. And yes, they're still working on it. If you've seen the flashy ads and glossy concept art, it's that giant mirrored line that's supposed to be this cool city. The ultra-modern city in the middle of the desert. They're calling it The Line. A futuristic metropolis stretching over 100 miles with flying taxis, AI systems, and luxury everything. It looks like something straight out of the future. A city with no cars, no pollution, powered entirely by clean energy. The kind of thing you would expect in a sci-fi movie. But here's the truth behind the marketing. To build this city, entire populations and tribes were forcefully moved from the territory. Families who had lived there for generations and had deep roots in that place were just told to leave. And what happened when people refused? The Human Rights Watch reports that some of them were forcefully removed and some of them were even killed. Imagine being told that your family home, the place that your grandparents built, is now a part of a project and you just need to go because the government wants this little toy of a city with a futuristic luxury stuff. No negotiation, no choices, just get out. That's what happened to the Hoytat tribe and many others who had to move for this NEOM city. And that's just one part of this tragic story, because then comes the question, who's actually building this massive city? The answer is mostly poor workers. Thousands of people from poor countries are brought in to do the heavy lifting. And according to the Human Rights Watch report, they're working in abusive and dangerous conditions. Here's what's been documented. Workers are trapped in jobs they can't leave. The company is restricting them and putting on tight labor laws. Their passports are taken away so that they can't leave or take another job. Wages are being delayed, sometimes for months. Safety is being ignored and people are forced to work in dangerous conditions without proper protection. Basically, these workers are building a dream city, but for them, it's an absolute nightmare. While the world sees shiny 3D renders of this city desert, the people actually building it are forced to work in conditions that are described as modern-day forced labor. It's being built on abuse and suffering. And here's the part that keeps me up at night. This deal went through $55 billion in cash. I mean, that is the equivalent of 100 elephants full of cash. I don't think you even understand how much money that is. One of the biggest gaming companies in the world will soon go from public to private. Now you might wonder, why does it matter? Here's the difference. Right now, EA is traded publicly. That means that it's traded on the stock market, it has public investors, and it has to follow strict rules. Every few months, EA is legally required to publish financial reports showing us how they spend the money. And they have to answer the tough questions from analysts and the public. In other words, even though EA is not perfect, there is a certain level of accountability and transparency that comes with being a public company. We get to see the strategies, the numbers, and explanations when things go wrong. But if EA becomes private, all of that goes away. They don't have to tell us anything anymore. No quarterly reports, no breakdowns of where the money goes. They will still have shareholders, only private ones. Decisions can be made behind closed doors and we will have zero visibility. That's bad enough on its own, but then add the Saudi investment fund that is known to be super secret about its operations, and it's just a recipe for disaster. This investment fund is known to be one of the least transparent investment funds in the world. Unlike other wealth funds that are connected to countries like Norway, for example, that publishes in detail everything that they invest into, the Saudi investment fund keeps their operations a secret. Nobody really knows how they use their mega wealth or how much influence they really have in the companies that they buy. In the worst case scenario, this might open doors to censorship. The priorities might not align with what the gaming community wants. All creative decisions might turn into political decisions. That's why going private and a lack of transparency is so terrifying. Because if it happens, we lose the only window we had into EA's decision making. And once that window is gone, we're completely in the dark. I am just one person. I don't have a news team behind me. And it seems like no other people in the Sims community are talking about it, except for Pixelade. I think the people who are not sponsored by the Sims team or EA might talk about it eventually, but I think the people that are under the creator network of EA will probably never speak out about this because I don't think they can. All I have is my curiosity, drive, and hours of research. I spend a lot of times connecting the dots, writing scripts, and listening to you guys. And I'm always open to feedback. If you find something I miss, please share it on my Discord. I will put a link under. I made a safe space for us to be able to talk, see what we can do from here. I do believe that we need to boycott EA as much as we can. Do not buy any of their games. Do not buy any of their new packs. Do not watch their trailers. Do not engage with them in any way. Unsubscribe from whatever you can. If you absolutely must play The Sims, for example, play it offline so that they don't have access to your data. Because the truth is, none of us asked for this to happen, and I don't think anybody expected this to happen. But it is happening, and we deserve to understand why. And they are not making it easy for us. On Discord, I will be also adding all the links to all the resources where I got this information from. I will be publishing my scripts for the videos so that you can see in depth where it's all coming from. And yes, there are other companies involved in that purchase. It's not just the Saudi investment fund. There's also Silver Lake and Affinity. And if we're going to talk about Silver Lake, well, they also invested in some shady project like a Chinese monitoring and surveillance technology company. So there is nothing good in this deal. Nothing good at all. I'm really not sure how my content is going to look from here. I will keep you updated, and I am probably going to start exploring other life simulator games. I'm excited for Paralives to come out December 8th, and I hope you stick with me through these really strange times. And I'll see you next video.